Good morning, everyone. I'm, as Leanne said, the patient engagement lead in the U.S. Food and Drug Administration's Center for Devices and Radiological Health in the Office of Strategic Partnerships and Technology Innovation. It's my pleasure to join you this morning as part of the 2021 International Children Advisories Network Virtual Summit. Next slide, please. My goal today is to share information with you that will answer these questions. Who is the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, commonly known as FDA? What does the FDA do? For example, what's the focus of our work? Why are patients important to FDA, and how do we engage them in our work? And more specifically, in the Center for Devices and Radiological Health, which I'll refer to as CDRH, and how is innovation impacting the work of CDRH teams? Next slide, please. The FDA has approximately 18,000 employees who represent some of the nation's most talented professionals who are working to protect the public health and fulfill FDA's mission. We are researchers, engineers, physicists, legislators, attorneys, mathematicians, healthcare professionals like doctors, nurses, pharmacists, physical therapists, laboratory workers, and social scientists, health educators, community specialists, and more. Next slide, please. The FDA has 6 centers that each have a specific focus in fulfilling our mission. Through the work of these centers, FDA protects the public health by making sure that products that are available to the public are safe and effective and provide benefits that outweigh the risks for intended use. We provide feedback to product developers in all phases of the product's life cycle, starting with when they have an idea about which product to make to after the product has been on the market and it's being monitored for safety. The products that we regulate, or in other words, are responsible for overseeing, include animal and human drugs, both prescription and non-prescription, like the drugs you may take or drugs you give to your pet for a certain illness. Biologics, which includes vaccines, like the ones to protect you from getting COVID-19 or the chickenpox, or things like blood products. We also regulate medical devices and radiation-emitting products, which includes devices like insulin pumps for diabetes, pacemakers that help the heartbeat, and medical equipment that's used in hospitals like an X-ray machine or MRI. We make sure that foods are safe, wholesome, sanitary, and are properly labeled, and that additives and ingredients used in foods are safe. We ensure that cosmetics are also safe and are properly labeled. We regulate tobacco products, and we advance public health by helping to speed product innovation. Next slide, please. What does the Center for Devices and Radiological Health do? CDRH protects and promotes public health. We make sure that patients and medical providers have timely access to safe, effective, and high-quality medical device and safe radiation-emitting products. Recently, we approved a medical device that uses new technology to help healthcare providers diagnose autism spectrum disorder in children 18 months to 5 years old who show symptoms of the disorder. This device uses software that's based on what's called machine learning. Machine learning is an artificial method that can be used to design and train software formulas to learn from and act on data. We also provide consumers, patients, and their caregivers and medical providers access to understandable, science-based information about the products we oversee. We help medical device innovation by advancing the science used in the regulatory environment. The CDRH Patient Science and Engagement Program, where I work, plays an integral part in these efforts. The Patient Science and Engagement Program is a team of experts who are committed to engaging with patients as partners and including patients' perspectives into medical device development and evaluation. We develop tools that measure patient experiences and perspectives. In a few minutes, you'll learn more about these tools from my colleague, Dr. Fraser Bosell. Next slide, please. So why are patients important to CDRH? At CDRH, patients are at the heart of all we do. Our vision is for patients in the U.S. to have access to high quality, safe, and effective medical devices of public health importance, first in the world. In other words, we want to make sure our country has the most effective and safest medical devices before anyone else in the world. Next slide, please. Patients are our co-pilots. They themselves are using devices at home and are more involved in making decisions about their illness in collaboration with their medical team. Patients use social media and other platforms to talk to each other about their common illness, their symptoms, and treatment. They give and receive advice and support each other. Patient groups are also involved with forming patient registries. Registries look at a lot of data for periods of time, and they give us more information about the impact of different illnesses. Patient groups are also becoming involved with clinical trial designs. Clinical trials are used to test the safety and effectiveness of medical devices before they are sold. Patients help instruct researchers about how their studies can be better focused on the needs of patients. Next slide, please. We often talk about patient engagement, but what exactly does that mean? Our draft or initial definition describes patient engagement as intentional, meaningful interactions with patients that provides opportunities for mutual learning and effective collaborations. In other words, the exchange of information with patients about their medical condition and the devices used to manage their condition benefits both parties involved. Next slide, please. Now let's take a look at some examples of CDRH patient engagement events that were held over the last year. In February, we conducted a workshop on the evolving role of artificial intelligence in radiological imaging. Two iCAN members, a teen and her mother, shared their valuable perspectives on this topic. Their input raised design considerations for device developers who were also in attendance. Last spring, we asked the American Association of Kidney Patient members how COVID-19 was impacting the availability of and access to medical device supplies and equipment to protect them, like gloves and masks. Their member responses helped CDRH make decisions about how to address device shortages. We've also responded to COVID-19 questions asked by patient organizations and posted these responses on our website for public viewing. And recently, we conducted a large meeting for our staff to learn about adolescent idiopathic scoliosis, a disease that usually occurs in late childhood and causes the spine to curve. Next slide, please. So now let's pause and hear from Dr. Fraser Bosell, who is a psychometrician and clinical outcome assessment reviewer with the Patient Science and Engagement team in the Center for Devices and Radiological Health at the FDA. Dr. Bosell will share some information about how innovation is changing how we receive information about the impact of medical devices on how a patient feels, functions, or survives.
Hi, my name is Fraser Bosell, and I'm what's called a psychometrician. This means I specialize in sets of questions or questionnaires, and I'd focus on developing questions used to find out how people are feeling and how their treatment is working. Today, there is even more of a focus on listening to patients and understanding how their disease impacts their life. At FDA, we want to be able to understand that impact by encouraging researchers to use good sets of questions. Medical device innovation is allowing researchers to ask questions delivered to you through your cell phone or your computer or tablet. In this way, you don't have to wait for a doctor's visit to share how you are feeling. Doctors and nurses can also use new tools to find out how you and other patients are doing at home, at school, or somewhere else. That way, they can focus on helping you do the things that are most important to you, like spending time with your friends and family, completing schoolwork, or playing sports. One of the biggest impacts come from finding better ways to listen and get information from patients through questionnaires and patient-centered assessments. Whether there's new technology or new statistical methods, we are seeing innovation in the ways we understand how medical devices impact you. You, as a person living with a medical condition, know best how your disease impacts you. The developers of medical devices can collect this information from many patients to better understand what is most important to the patient group and how the disease affects their life. This can then lead to better treatments focused on improving the symptoms and impacts that are most important to you. One of the barriers to collecting information from patients is that not everyone, particularly young children, are able to report for themselves how they feel and function. Hearing from patients is important, but for babies, small children, and some other patients, they can't tell us how they feel. In these cases, we have to rely on their parents, their caregivers, nurses, or doctors to give insights on how these patients are doing. And this can be challenging. For instance, researchers might look at vital signs like a heart rate or a blood pressure, but they also may look at facial expressions to help identify how a baby is feeling. A baby might grimace or tug at its ear if it has an earache. We can also use these multiple methods to help find out how a baby or a small child is feeling. iCAN members make the biggest impact by being involved, like you are now. You know best how you feel and what your goals are. So don't be afraid to get involved and make your voice heard. We want all patients to participate in the regulatory process, which may help stimulate innovation in medical devices. Your willingness to participate in clinical studies, as well as the development of research tools like questionnaires, can help make innovation happen.
Wow, that was very enlightening. Patient-reported outcomes are truly changing to more effectively report which outcomes are most important to patients. Next slide, please. Before the focus on patient engagement, we looked at new technologies, and we often had questions about how it made patients feel, whether they felt better or worse. Next slide, please. Now we're able to learn from patients, and it sheds light on our work. In return, the information we have about the way devices work and how well they work in certain patients can be considered by you and your parents when you talk to your doctor about what is the best choice for you. Next slide, please. The CDRH Patient and Caregiver Connection, or PCC, is a way our staff can learn from patients about what it's like to live with their medical conditions and how the medical device is helping them. The Patient and Caregiver Connection has 19 partner organizations who our staff may contact when they need patient input that's relevant to their work. By hearing directly from patients and caregivers, our staff is able to learn about what's most important to them, including how to manage and treat their symptoms and risks that they're willing to take in order to get better. For example, in May, we worked with one partner, patient and caregiver partner, setting scoliosis straight. They helped us find teens and their parents to talk with us about their experience with scoliosis. Their input helps Cdrh staff to understand what it's like to live with scoliosis and the treatment factors they consider, along with the benefits and risks that they were willing to take to have the outcomes they want. One patient was a dancer, so it was really important to her that the treatment she chose would give her the greatest opportunity to continue dancing after the treatment intervention. Next slide, please. FDA values patients and provides various opportunities for patient engagement. In addition to the CDRH patient engagement through the Patient and Caregiver Connection that I just mentioned, and the Patient Engagement Advisory Committee, also known as PEAC, FDA has other formal ways to talk to patients about their experiences, including listening sessions with patients who have rare diseases. These sessions help to inform us about all medical products, not just drugs. Unlike the patient-focused drug development initiative, whose primary goal is to better include the patient's voice in drug development and evaluation. Next slide, please. Let's pause now and hear from Annie Saha, Assistant Director in the Digital Health Center of Excellence, about ways innovation is changing how digital health technology is being used to advance healthcare.
Hi, everyone. I'm Annie Saha. I am excited to be here at the iCAN annual meeting. I am at FDA in our Center for Devices and Radiological Health. I am an assistant director in our Digital Health Center of Excellence, and I focus on strategic partnerships and collaborative research. And when I talk about digital health, and what am I talking about really? I'm talking about everything from the apps that you might have on your phone that count the number of steps you take, that might tell you how many beats per minute your heart is beating. And it might actually connect also to devices that you already have. So if you have diabetes, you might have a continuous glucose meter, and that might have an app that you connect to your phone where you or your parents can see how you're doing and measure your blood sugar levels. And then other types of digital health technologies include things like virtual reality headsets. So, you might be able to put on that headset. Right now, you might use it to play games, but you can also use those technologies, and people are using those technologies to see how it can help treat or improve people with different diseases or conditions. And then there's other types of digital health, including other types of wearables or sensors, like you might have a Fitbit or an Apple Watch, and those might tell you different information about how you're doing as well. And those are just some of the types of digital health technologies that you might be seeing and using just in your day-to-day lives already. So digital health really has the ability to help manage conditions, your diseases or conditions in lots of different ways. So I talked about diabetes earlier, and that's one way. Now you can continuously see how you're doing and how your blood sugar levels are using a continuous glucose meter, and those are continuing to evolve and innovate over time, linked with other types of information like your health information, your food information, your activity, and you can use all of that to really help manage your disease and condition for both you as well as your parents know how you're doing. I can also help your doctors as well. Another area where we're seeing digital health innovation is an FDA approved product where FDA you've looked at virtual reality for kids who have ADHD and able to use, so kids can get a headset, virtual reality headset, and be able to wear that and play different games, and it can actually help with ADHD. And we're seeing a lot of new innovations coming down in lots of new areas that can help all across the board, whether you're talking about for heart disease, for diabetes, and really for all kinds of different areas. And there's a lot of opportunity and promise to continue that over time. Well, digital health, as I said, is a really broad area, and there's a lot of opportunities in a lot of different areas, really in any disease or condition, where having the ability to know how you're doing and functioning so that you can see your step count or how your heart's beating and how your activity tracking, and really use that information to see how things make you feel better or maybe worse. It can also help your parents understand that. And that's really across the board. And as we continue to have smarter and new types of devices that have digital health components in them, you can really, there's so much promise in so many different areas. Digital health has a lot of opportunities and also some challenges and barriers. And one of that is you're getting a lot of information. If you're collecting stuff on your phone or on your watch all the time, and that's going somewhere, whether it's coming to you, to your parents, to your doctor, the question then is, what do we do with that? And how do you use that information in some way? Do we need to create, is there something about creating alerts that's going to help you or your parents or your doctor? And what do you do with all that data and information? So I think that's one area we need to continue to work and collaborate and partner with, and that's been a challenge with how do we use all the information and data that comes from digital health technologies. You as iCAN members have a lot of opportunity both now and as you're continuing to go through your education. If you're really interested in digital health, there's a lot of opportunity to really get involved, whether it's to create your own app that might help you with your disease or condition, whether it's actually going into college or to study areas like data science, to study engineering, to study software and devices, and you can actually then build and grow into the field and really become part of that innovation and really be able to spur that both as a patient as well as a developer. And that there's a lot of opportunity for you now and in the future to do that.
Thank you, Annie. A lot of exciting work is happening in the Digital Health Center of Excellence, as you just heard. Next slide, please. So I previously mentioned the Patient Engagement Advisory Committee, PEAC, which is also a part of the Center for Devices in Radiological Health. And now I'd like to share a little bit more information about PEAC. PEAC members include different types of patients, caregivers, and patient advocates who share their knowledge and what they think about specific topics. They also give advice and make formal recommendations to FDA, and they serve as someone CDRH can go to for their expertise and things that are relevant to patients. Next slide, please. The communication framework for cybersecurity is an example of the PEAC's work. Medical devices are increasingly connected, whether used at home or in hospital environments. The way a patient's medical information is accessed and shared is becoming very complex. As a result, we need more ways to protect systems that have patient information from unauthorized access by by persons who may want to steal or disrupt our ability to get our data. Cybersecurity refers to how we secure and protect our patient data. In 2019, the PEAC developed a document with recommendations for how these safe approaches could be communicated to patients. Next slide, please. Last fall of 2020, the PEAC made recommendations for artificial intelligence and machine learning in medical devices. Artificial intelligence means using machines to mimic how humans would think by teaching the machines using patient data sets. Artificial intelligence and machine learning is being used more in healthcare to help diagnose illnesses in patients sooner. But there are things that need to be considered. PEAC's recommendations address these things that are important to patients, like the range of data that's being used to train the machines. Does it reflect different types of people, races, ages, sexes, income, and education levels? Are people like me represented in the data? How can we ensure the data is what we think it is? How is device information shared with patients? How would I know what went into designing the device and what factors that impact the patient's trust in the technology? Next slide, please. CDRH encourages patient engagement through draft guidance. Draft guidance is a document that's not yet final, but it reflects the agency's current thinking about an issue. In this case, our thinking on engaging patients. FDA provides the guidance for companies to consider as they make medical devices and engage patients in the process. Next slide, please. Patients are being engaged in innovative ways like artificial intelligence and machine learning, digital health technologies, patient registries and natural history studies, medical device clinical investigations, and as regulatory and industry advisory council members. Patients play a key role in how healthcare is changing, not only in FDA, but in many areas of healthcare. Next slide, please. So I hope you have a better idea about who is the US Food and Drug Administration, the professionals who do the work, what we do, and how we engage patients in our work, why patients are so important to FDA, and some of the ways that patients are engaged by CDRH staff and in other areas of FDA, how innovation is impacting the work of CDRH teams, and most importantly, why hearing patients' experiences like yours is so very important to FDA and to others who have a role in healthcare. And now I'd like to answer any questions you may have.
Hi, Tracy. How are you?
Hi, Amy. Good morning.
Good morning. Hey, I learned a lot from your session, and I thought that was just absolutely terrific. And I've been kind of moderating the chat here, and I see that some of our iCAN kiddos have been writing in questions that they would like to have you answer. So I thought maybe we would go through a few of them. Starting up at the top, we had one kiddo who wrote in that they wanted to know what kind of controls you put in place at the FDA to make sure that drugs that have maybe a negative consequence have a control around them to protect kiddos.
So Sorry. So as it pertains to drugs, I'm going to, what I'd like to do anyways, I don't have the expertise in many of the areas that you may be asking about. So what I'd like to do is to take those questions and go back to our subject matter experts and be able to provide a response to you all at a later date. That would be, drugs comes from our Center for Drug Evaluation and Research. And I can assure you that they do take many controls, but I'd like to defer to them for a better response on that.
That's a great idea. And I just want to take a moment and let everybody know at iCAN that we've created a portal that connects directly to the FDA website that kids could go to and look up some of these answers and better understand where to go to find out more information on medicines and drugs and the safety surrounding those items. And they can go to our website at www.icanresearch.org. So that's a wonderful segue, Tracy, for sharing that link. So thank you for mentioning that. We also had another question, and this might fall into the same thing, but I wanted to make sure I called it out. Mary Rose wanted to know a little bit about how the FDA looks at overseeing vitamins and supplements.
Right, yes, that would fall under that same kind of umbrella that I'd like to defer to those subject matter experts for that kind of response. I would hate to tell you something that was not complete, so I'd feel more comfortable doing that.
I think that is very understandable. I did have another question that came in, and it was from Robin, and she wanted to know if the FDA only worked in the US or if it worked around the world.
FDA does work around the world, I can tell you that. We have locations that are international as well as here in the United States.
That's perfect. And also, does the FDA check for every treatment to know if there's something that they can do to help support that?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that question again?
Well, so we have a question here, and I could be paraphrasing it a little bit incorrectly, but we had a question about the FDA checking to make sure that there's a treatment for every condition.
So the FDA regulates, so I'll speak from the Center for Medical Devices and Radiological Health, which is where I work. So we don't determine which submissions we receive. So, it's really up to developers to determine which products that they are submitting information about to FDA for us to give a complete and thorough review to make sure that those products are safe for the public. So we don't actually drive what people are making for various conditions. It's more so those that we receive, making sure that we do a thorough review of the information to make sure it's what it should be before we give approval for that product.
That is so good to know. Mary Claire also had a question about protecting patients' privacy with digital technology. Do you have any information on how that might work?
So one of the things I mentioned during my presentation is about the PEAKS communication about the framework for cybersecurity. And that's something that you can actually find on our website. That's something that they developed in 2019 with recommendations for safe approaches and how that information could be communicated to patients. So that's something that's very beneficial. And because digital health technology often uses systems, to transmit data and information, that's something that may be of interest. Anything in addition to that, I would have to defer to our Digital Health Center of Excellence for a response for anything that they might be able to add to what was already developed.
That is so good to know. Reese also wrote in a question about wanting to know what your favorite part of your job in working at the FDA might be.
My favorite part is working with patients. I love working with patients. I'm actually a nurse as well, and spent some time working on an ICU, and I absolutely love children, and I love working with all patients. I just feel like it's very a passion of mine to be able to help patients to understand disease and information. It's been a goal that I had from very first, when I started working at with the federal government, I wanted to work at FDA. And so I'm so excited to be a part of the work that's being done there. There's such talented people, and we do amazing work, and it's so patients. I'm so happy that patients are at the center of the work that we do, because it really, patients are at the center. You're why we're here. The information that we get, the devices that we have, drugs, regardless of which center it is, we're here to help patients and to make the public's lives safe. To make sure you have safe products. So that's really exciting, and I love having the opportunity to engage with patients and organizations.
That is so terrific. I love that too, and I think iCAN aligns so nicely with the patient-centered care and how important that is for all of us to know and to be aware of. So we have about 1 minute, and I think I can take one more question here and share it to you. How many kids are involved in patient partnership with the FDA?
Oh, you guys are so smart, and you have such fantastic questions. I won't even guess to give you a response to that. I have no idea what the number is. And if I can find out, I will definitely look into that and see if we have an answer for you. And if we do, I'll be able to respond to that.
This was wonderful, Tracy. We can't thank you enough for being a part of this and for bringing your fantastic colleagues and all their words of expertise and wisdom to the iCAN community. It's been a pleasure to work with you and to have you here today. We've just enjoyed it tremendously. What I'd like to tell all the kids that are watching right now, don't be shy. Send us follow-ups if you have more questions and we didn't get to them today. We would love to answer them. And I'm pretty sure that we can probably talk Tracy into helping us with a few follow-up questions and responses. If you send them over to us, we'll do our very best to make that happen. And then if you do have any other questions, again, go to our website, check out www.icanresearch.org and check for that link to the FDA page. There's tons of resources and information and ways that you can also be involved with sharing your voice even further. So with that, I think it's time to go on to our next topic. And we are so appreciative, Tracy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amy, and thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of this summit. And I wish you all the best for the next upcoming days.
Thank you.